is known, are likely to go the way of the West Coast Teamsters, who broke last month with their national chapter in endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris. That's partly due to former President Donald Trump's recent alienation of first responders by threatening to hold California's emergency disaster funds hostage. And Vice President Kamala Harris has raised more than $1 billion, yes, that is with a B, in less than 3 months as a presidential candidate. While other presidential candidates, together with their parties, have passed that threshold before, the sheer speed with which Ms. Harris and her affiliated party committees raised the sum is outstanding and notable. And it's interesting to also note that the amount raised by the Harris campaign is much, much more than former President Donald Trump has announced raising in all of 2024. And Donald Trump has so far opted out of the official planning for a government handover, a move that allows him to avoid disclosing his donors to his transition effort. Donald Trump's campaign has not yet participated in the government's official presidential transition process, a significant break from past practice that could threaten the seamless transfer of power should the Republican nominee win election. And Wisconsin has seen the largest drop in Black voter turnout in the country. Democrats' chances of winning it may rest on reversing that trend, but Black voters there say neither party has addressed the needs of their community. The steep decline in voting by one of the most loyal Democratic constituencies in recent elections presents a challenge to Vice President Kamala Harris, who will need to maximize turnout among Black voters to win this essential swing state. Now, Biden carried the state of Wisconsin in 2020 by only 20,000 votes. And a 30-second ad being run by a Florida trial lawyer named Dan Newland in support of former President Trump's campaign stars Brett Favre, the former NFL quarterback who won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. It began appearing in Pennsylvania over the past few days. Now, Mr. Newland said he expected to spend $2.5 million to $3 million on the ad as part of a $10 million television advertising buy in the state. The Favre ad will run frequently during weekend sports and news programs. And to hear former Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland tell it, electing him to the United States Senate will pull the chamber from the brink of constant partisan crisis and nudge it toward consensus on the biggest issues facing the country. Well, Hogan, a center-leaning Republican who was elected twice in the deep blue state of Maryland, argues that he could occupy the space of retiring Senator Joe Manchin, independent of West Virginia. He says he'll be a swing vote a swing vote that could influence both parties and bring the parties together on key legislation. That's the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by Rashad Frazier Gaines. He's the founder of Black Progressives, and Jamar Brown. He's the former executive director of the Texas Democratic Party, and he is a Democratic strategist. In hour two, we're going to be talking about those swing voters, particularly in Wisconsin and Arizona and other key states. It has been said repeatedly by experts and pundits that in order for Kamala Harris to win, she needs record turnout of African American voters. Well, is that possible when you have voters like those Black voters in Wisconsin saying they're not jazzed by either of the candidates? And we are about 25 days out from this election. So to have a key voting block for VP Harris, such as Black voters in swing states, not be fully on board should be a troubling sign for the Democratic Party and for the Harris-Walz team. What is it going to take to get those voters, those Black voters in Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, those swing states, those key states? What is it going to take to get voter turnout? Can we get Black voter turnout at 208 Obama level? Is that unrealistic in this partisan world that we live in, highly partisan, highly divided country? Can we get 2012 Obama turnout by Black voters in this election? Well, we're going to talk to some folks in the great state of Arizona about what is going to motivate Black voters in that state. I've been on the phone with many of voters in Arizona because I have announced online that I have kicked off a Voter 2024 Battleground State Election Tour. I'm going to be touring the 7 battleground states over the next 21 days, going into those battleground states, talking to voters, talking to uh, other key elected officials, community leaders, and those folks who have their fingers on the pulse of what's happening in these states. So, I'm in California. I'm a Midwesterner by birth, and I grew up in the Midwest, but I've been living in California. And some folks say we're in a bubble in California, and we just see blue everywhere we go. But when you get outside of the state of California, the world looks a whole lot different. So I wanted to put that to the test. And so I'm taking my show on the road. I'll be doing some special episodes, some live broadcasts in each of these states. I'll be doing voter engagement, and I'm also going to be doing some canvassing. Over the past weekend, I was a part of some fundraising efforts for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Collectively in Los Angeles over Saturday and Sunday, we raised close to $1.5 million. And as happy as we are about that, we know money isn't the only thing that's going to guarantee a victory in this race. Money is really, really important, and you need a lot of money to run for president. We know that it's $1 billion plus proposition. As much as we hate having to spend that kind of money on our politics, look at that money could be used to cure cancer or to house unhoused people. So many other things that could be done around social justice issues with all of that money. But that's the world we find ourselves in, and Democrats have to be competitive. So we were raising money for Harris and Walz. I did an event with Black Hollywood that Shirley Ralph, if you watch Abbott Elementary, there were several cast members from Abbott Elementary at the fundraiser on Sunday. Shirley Ralph and Jennifer Lewis went viral because at this fundraiser on Sunday, they started singing the song that they wrote on the spot and performed on the spot to support Vice President Harris. And she posted it on her page. The clip went viral. She talks about it as they were out promoting Abbott Elementary. So Black Hollywood solidly behind the Harris-Walz team. Actually, Maya Harris, the sister and national surrogate for Kamala Harris, was with us on Sunday. On Saturday, Alfre Woodard and Boris Kojo, D. Nice, Don Cheadle, Mayor Karen Bass, Senator LaFonza Butler, and again, a host of community leaders who are with us. And we are happy to say we raised close to $1.5 million. So super excited about that. But again, got to figure out how we get these voters out. So I'm going to do my part. I'm going to be knocking doors in Arizona, knocking doors in Vegas, knocking doors all over the battleground states. And check out my Instagram page. Check out my social media to find out where I'm going to be. And if you live in one of those states, by all means, join me. Join my live events that I'm hosting, and consider signing up to do some canvassing and door knocking yourself. This election will not win itself. We're gonna win because folks like me and you and all of my viewers and listeners are out on the streets talking to voters and knocking on doors. But before I bring on my guest, we're going to get to some news today, but there's some news happening with Sean Diddy Combs. A new report out today says he is wanting to go to trial very quickly on the federal sex trafficking charges that he faces in New York. His lawyers have told the court in New York that he would like to be in trial next spring, as early as April or May. He has asserted what we call his right to a speedy trial. And under our federal judicial system, when you are a defendant, you can request what we call a speedy trial. And Mr. Combs plans to do just that. He would like to be, like I said, in trial in April or May of next year. His preference was mentioned in a joint letter from his lawyers and prosecutors. In that letter to the court, both sides outlined the issues they believe should be addressed at a pretrial hearing that's scheduled for tomorrow in a Manhattan federal court. In that joint letter as well, the government said they had started submitting to Combs's team the voluminous evidence that they have in this case, including several terabytes terabytes. That just means a great big file of electronic material. So that means the government has a lot of videotape, and they've organized that videotape in a file, and they've started to turn that over. Prosecutors have an obligation to turn over what we call exculpatory evidence to the other side. So if the prosecutor has any evidence that could exonerate you, they don't get to hide the ball with that evidence. They have to actually turn that evidence over so that the defense will know what it is and won't be surprised. The items already turned over to the defense include a complete set of search warrants in the case, a phone belonging to Sean Combs that was seized back in March, and reports on his iCloud accounts. So it's so important in these kind of cases about what we learn. We learn that when we put things out on the internet, they go into the cloud. And as much as we may think we're erasing things that we type on the internet, we are not. Things that we post on social media, even though we may delete, those things are stored in the cloud. And if you are ever in a criminal case, the government can get a search warrant to tap into your computer system, your hard drive, your cloud, your iCloud account, and they can access any and everything you've ever posted online. So you have a digital footprint, I have a digital footprint, and the government can access that digital footprint via a warrant. So again, keep that in mind. Sean Combs' lawyer keep filing appeals for bail. They did again yesterday on Tuesday in the circuit court, the Second Circuit Court of New York. The filing came after Combs was denied bail already twice by two separate judges following his arraignment. So they are taking a third attempt. They're making a third attempt to get bail for Sean Combs. He's going to be in court tomorrow. At that hearing, that pretrial hearing, his lawyers are going to be asking for the court to set that early trial date. But we know Combs's legal problems are far from over. A Texas litigator by the name of Tony Busby said at a press conference earlier this month, he's going to file over 100 lawsuits. He says he is representing over 100 people that claim that Sean Combs somehow sexually assaulted them. Some pretty serious allegations, pretty sickening allegations, according to this lawyer. And the lawyer says he's going to be naming names, so not just Sean Combs, but others. And if you follow certain accounts online, you'll see today Sean Combs' mom was speaking out, saying that she is shocked by how quickly so many people have turned against her son. She says so many allegations against her son are false. She said her son is not a monster, that yes, he has made mistakes, but that he has also done a lot of good for a lot of people. So this is a case that's going to continue to be played out in the media. We're going to bring you up to the minute reports about what happens in that courtroom tomorrow. If Sean Combs does get bail, we'll bring that news to you as well. We'll let you know when his trial date is likely to be. And we're going to follow all of this evidence that's being turned over. A lot of it, I'm sure, will be leaked to the press and we'll have access to it. So again, Sean Combs facing very serious federal criminal charges, as well as the potential for a barrage of additional civil lawsuits. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later today.
What's that sound? That's the sound of Downy Unstoppable scent beads going into your washing machine and giving your clothes freshness that lasts all day long. There it is again. It's like music to your ears, or more like music to your nose. That freshness is irresistible. Let's get a Downy Unstoppables bottle shake. And now a sniff solo. Nice. With Downy Unstoppables, you just toss, wash, wow, for all-day freshness.
So the thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it's uncomfortable to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. And only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for up to 8 hours for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price, however, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer, excludes 8-count members.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, this is Les Brown. I want you to go to lesbrownpowertour.com. On October the 11th, 12th, and 13th, this weekend, we will be at the Airport Marriott, teaching people the techniques and strategies on how you can begin to live your dream right now. Many people have the ability to do more, but unfortunately, they're trying to open new doors with old keys. We're going to teach you how to monetize your brilliance with one of the speakers. We have a lady who was once a gas station cashier, and she's now a billionaire, and she's going to share her knowledge. I'm going to share with you how to tell your story, how to present yourself, and how you can earn millions of dollars with your wisdom and your experiences. October the 11th, 12th, and 13th, this weekend. Go to lesbrownpowertour.com. It's going to change your life. Spread the word. Go to lesbrownpowertour.com this weekend in LA at the Marriott at the airport. This is your moment. You have something special. You have greatness in you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, we are back with Rashad. We're back with Jamar Brown and Rashad Frazier Gaines. Thanks to both of you for joining me in this hour. Let's start with you, Rashad Frazier Gaines. $1 billion, Kamala Harris. I mean, I don't know what to say about that in 3 months. That is just unheard of.
It is. I just think it's indicative of the fact that there are a lot of Americans who are ready to move forward. I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm actually surprised it didn't happen sooner. I remember the week in, July, when she became the nominee, or excuse me, the presumptive nominee, when President Biden, I mean, that week she raised a buttload of money. So I'm not surprised. I'm excited. I hope that the campaign, and the folks leading the campaign, they're smart people. I hope that they utilize these resources, put that money on the ground, and are knocking doors and having real conversations with folks to get people to the polls.
What do you make of this, Jamar? You've been a executive director of the Texas Democratic Party, so you know how much money is needed to run a national campaign, like a presidential campaign. But there's some folks, Jamar, when I sent that around that she had raised that kind of money, people were like, okay, great, but come on, we should be spending this money on homelessness, on, people who don't have food, just all kinds of other social issues. And they weren't knocking the vice president, they were happy for her, but just the amount of money that it takes to run for office. I mean, some of these Senate races are, $20-30 million. This is insane.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing I will share with you and your viewers is that our politics cost more. We saw way back, especially after 2010, we saw the conservatives through ALEC and through other corporations and other groups spend an unprecedented amount of money in school board races, right? They were spending $500,000 to $1 million to get local Tea Party folks elected. And so Democrats have had to work to match those resources, not just to reach a wide variety of voters in terms of the coalition that we have, but they've also had to reach, because there's so much misinformation and disinformation, right? So it's not just how many TV ads do you have to run. Now you got to run ads on this issue, because you're being attacked from so many places from these corporations that did receive big corporate tax cuts from Republicans. And so I think our politics just costs more because there's more ground that we have to cover, especially as a coalition party. And it's more resources that needs to be covered in terms of being in respective communities. But just to Rashad's point, it's not just almost how much you raise, because now we know the vice president has the money that she needs to win this election. Now it's how does she spend it and where does she spend it to make sure that we have the apparatus and the resources necessary to get out the vote in these states that are going to be so close.
Well, what's striking to me too, look at this lawyer. This is a private lawyer in Florida that's spending $10 million of his own money to run ads for Donald Trump. So not only do we have people donating, like through the process I used, giving a fundraiser where you have surrogates come out and you have, people making donations directly to a particular fund, the Harris Walls Fund, or you have these PACs that are raising money. This is a lawyer, obviously a very successful lawyer. If he got $10 million to burn on an ad for Donald Trump, but what do you make of that, Rashad, that you got individuals just saying, hey, I'm going to go to a television station, TV, they're going to take money from whoever got the money. So is that the new way that we're going to see folks jumping into races, is just by spending their own money in this way?
Areva, and you don't know this, but Jamar and I started in politics together when we were in college. I was the president of the Young Dems. He was the president of the College Dems. And I'm pretty sure Jamar would agree, the world has changed in the last 17 years, right? There used to be a time where people who were major donors were sought after by candidates, right? They went to them with their hand, holding their hands like, please give me money. I'll be your best friend. You'll have unprecedented access to my office. And then as we saw with Tom Steyer, a billionaire, couldn't get Joe Biden to call him back, right? So I think...
Well, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
The whole
It's a thing. It's still a thing.
Could not get Joe Biden to call him back, right?
So wait a minute, Rashad. What did Tom Steyer do to get on the wrong side of Uncle Joe?
He didn't do anything wrong. Joe Biden just didn't call him back because he didn't have to. So what I'm saying is that shows you how the world has changed with the dynamic of money in politics, right? So we went from elected officials and candidates chasing donors, now to donors chasing candidates and chasing elected officials.
Exactly.
So now folks are saying, you know what? I don't have to do that. I'll do it myself. I as an individual person, I can go on irs.gov, get me an EIN, start me a PAC, start me a C4, do whatever, and do it myself. And I don't have to consult with them. I don't have to talk to the campaign people. I don't have to follow their rules that the campaign has. I can do what I want to do, and nobody can do nothing about it.
Yeah.
And I hear you guys. I hear both of you saying the world has changed. Yes. And I hear you, Jamar, that you get attacked by so many different groups on so many different issues. But aren't we just making a whole lot of marketeers and a whole lot of political ad agencies super rich? I mean, that $1 billion, the majority of that, will go into the hands of these ad agencies and these television and radio stations and these media outlets. They are the ones getting rich. And I'd have to imagine that there's another way to run a campaign in this world where we all have access to social media. We all have access, information has been somewhat democratized. I don't know. It just feels like to me, if we're spending billions of dollars every 4 years, every 2 years, couldn't that money be used for kids or education or something?
I agree. And the only thing I'll add, Areva, if I may, a lot of people are spending these resources, $10 million to the gentleman, the lawyer you're just talking about. There are two things that they can do. They can either hold a candidate accountable or an elected official accountable, or they're buying access in their office on policy that actually helps their business or their industry, whatever you want to call it, as well. And so you see a lot of that happening, and on both sides. I'm not saying one side or the other, right? Where, okay, I spent $10 million through my PAC. I either am going to hold you accountable because I care about this particular issue, or I want you to pass a bill or do some executive action on something that I particularly care about. And so also you have to think about people are now spending their own personal resources to buy access to manage how government runs and the issues that government focuses on. And so to your point, Areva, right where you say that could we spend more money on reducing homelessness in our communities or reducing crime or, helping public education, whatever. Now it's those folks are going to say, yeah, but I want my corporate tax break, but I dropped $10 million, And so now how do the people rise up with their own power, and even our own resources, to your point, right? Where Areva, you use the example, right, that you and the folks that you work with raised $1.5 million for the campaign. Now, what are those issues when and if Kamala Harris is elected? What are those issues that you all are now going to come on the other end? And so, unfortunately, yes, money has moved through politics in this way. Now it's not just about folks individually. It's also about how do we collectively now put our money together as Black people and say, we are going to invest and make sure a candidate is elected, that a decision maker is being elected. It's also about saying on the other end, when we get someone elected, how do we leverage our power?
That it's making it a situation where wealthy people like Dan Newland that has $10 million to burn can go out and get ads, and poor people that get $5, they don't have a chance of even getting the attention of any of our elected officials. Money in politics, that's a whole nother topic. We're going to continue that discussion. Also talking about Larry Hogan's play for the U.S. Senate race in Maryland, saying he'll be the next Joe Manchin. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll discuss it on the other side. When we come forward, KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Advocates are calling on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to extend the voter registration deadline due to recent storms. The Southern Poverty Law Group is representing at least 2 voting rights groups who filed a motion for emergency relief earlier this week, asking a federal court to force the governor to reopen registration. The organizations, which include the Florida NAACP, claim many residents have been inaccessible due to Hurricanes Helene and Milton. DeSantis held a news conference earlier this week saying the state had no reason to make any adjustments. A beauty product company has come up with a unique way to honor HBCUs. The Lip Bar has teamed up with the HBCU Culture Shop to offer a line of limited edition lip gloss products. The glosses come in 7 different colors, each named for an HBCU institution. The brand will return 15% of each sale to the university represented by that product. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Over in Montebello, 3 right lanes are blocked with an accident on the 60 East at San Gabriel Boulevard. Stop traffic is coming from Indiana Street over an hour and a half. Back in Diamond Bar, center lane is still blocked with an accident, and stop delays continue from Azusa on the 60 East before Diamond Bar Boulevard. Stalled Big Rig continues to block the on-ramp of Pompton's 91 East from Wilmington Avenue, with stop traffic coming from Main Street. And if you're in Garden Grove, an SUV and pickup truck involved accident are in the center divide at the 22 East at Brookhurst.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
35 years ago today, October 9th, 1989, Art Shell became the NFL's first Black head coach in the NFL's modern era. Shell was hired by the Raiders when the team was in Oakland. When Shell got the job in 1989, the NFL was way behind other sports. The NBA had already hired 18 Black head coaches, and Major League Baseball had 4 Black managers. 22 Black head coaches have been hired by NFL teams after Shell. There are 10 teams, including the Rams, that have never hired a Black head coach. The other 9, the Baltimore Ravens, Buffalo Bills, Dallas Cowboys, Jacksonville Jaguars, New Orleans Saints, New York Giants, Seattle Seahawks, Tennessee Titans, and Washington Commanders. There are 6 Black head coaches in the NFL this season, but none of the league's 32 teams have a Black offensive coordinator, a position considered a key stepping stone to becoming a head coach. The NFL still has some work to do. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader. If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out.
Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black.
Keep following the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company. If you have asthma, you know that there are certain things that can set off your asthma symptoms. These things are called triggers, and patients with severe asthma have an average of 8 triggers. It could be pollen, dust, pollution, colds, viruses, smoke, or stress. If you know your symptoms, you have already taken the first step to managing your asthma. The next step is to write your triggers down in a notebook or journal and record your symptoms when you come across those triggers. This will give your healthcare provider valuable information about what you can do to help manage your triggers. By understanding your triggers and writing them down, you are on your way to taking back control of your lung health. Visit luma-edu.com for more guidance. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates Tavis Smiley on receiving the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award from President Joseph R. Biden Jr. for a lifelong commitment to using his media and philanthropic platforms to help build a stronger nation. A host of Tavis's family, friends, colleagues, and luminaries, including LA Mayor Karen Bass, joined in the celebration. KBLA Talk 1580 wishes to thank the following partners for their support: the Weingart Foundation, Dr. Shikari Byerly, Rodrigo Byerly, and the team at Aviterus Public Opinion Research, Waters Tax Service, LA Councilmember Heather Hutt, the Empowerment Congress, Wallace and Renee Fortuné, the IQ Air Foundation, Dr. Kenneth Arduna, and Central Neighborhood Christian Health Clinics, LA County Supervisor Holly Mitchell, LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn, Ambassador Michael A. Lawson, Ambassador Charles R. Stiff, and Attorney John E. Sweeney. Congratulations, Tavis, on your Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
We are back, and in this hour, helping me to break down today's trending and breaking news is Rashad Frazier Gaines, as well as Jamar Brown. And in hour 2, we're going to be talking about Black voters in swing states. There is a shocking, jaw-dropping article out in the Washington Post today saying that Black voters in Wisconsin aren't feeling either of the candidates. Now, Joe Biden did carry Wisconsin the last presidential election, but it was only by about 20,000 votes. Now, if Black voters in Wisconsin are not feeling the Democratic candidate, might that be the same for Black voters in other swing states? And what can we do in these last 25 plus days to encourage Black voters in Wisconsin and all of the swing states and really across the nation to see the significance of this election and to vote for Kamala Harris? Got a lot of work to do. All right, Jamar, we're going to talk a lot about that in hour 2, but I just want to get your take on that. You're, again, you've worked for the party. You know how challenging it can be when you have a voting bloc as significant as Black voters saying they're not excited about the candidate at the top of the ticket. That can have implications not only for the presidential race, but for key congressional races, Senate races, and all the way down to, key state and local elections. What do you make of these Wisconsin Black folk?
Well, one of the things I think that's particularly important in this election that's happening is, we've got to meet people exactly where they are. So where people are not satisfied, the vice president has to continue to talk about how she's going to progress on the work that has happened with the Biden and Harris administration, right? She's got to meet them where they are, but you also not just where they are on the issues, but where they are actually physically, right? And so she's got to go. Her surrogates, other candidates down the ballot, have got to be in these communities, actually talking to people, whether it's at the barbershop, the grocery store, the beauty salon, right? And really getting really granular in these less than now 4 weeks before the election. That's what I would be doing and what I would be telling the campaign, for me particularly, because at the end of the day, people have to see themselves, not just in the process, but see themselves in your policies and how you will lead when you are elected as president. And so we've been seeing these issues happen, not just with Vice President Harris, but even before, with President Biden and obviously everything that happened before the summer. And so now this is go time, and go time means you're just down on the ground in the communities, taking everything that's happening at these rallies, what she's talking about on the national shows, and really going hyper local in coordination with local and state Democratic parties and other candidates down the ballot.
What do you say, Rashad? And you're right, Jamar, this is go time. This is, taking it to the streets time. This is knocking on doors. This is phone call time. This is barbershop, beauty shop. This is all of
wherever
that.
You can get them. Mm-hmm.
Wherever, going where people are, not where you want them to be. But Rashad, when you get there, what are you going to say to these people? A friend of mine is doing some canvassing right now. He went from LA. He was in Arizona for 4 days. And he said he knocked on doors. And of the doors he knocked on, there were 4 Black men that he encountered on this canvassing trip he was on. And without question, all 4 of them said, no way, not voting for Kamala Harris. So what are you saying when you get to these doors and you're talking to folks like in Wisconsin, or the 4 African-American men that he encountered in Arizona?
So I'm not talking to the people at the doors. I'm talking to the party, because that's where the issue is. People at home who are economically depressed and dealing with life, they are entitled to feel the way they feel. Every group represented under the tent of the Democratic Party is entitled to feel how they feel. It is an abomination, and as my grandmother would say, a shame before God, that in less than 30 days before the election, we're having this conversation about Black people in the swing state of Wisconsin. And we're really talking about Black people in Milwaukee. That's who we're talking about. And Black people in Milwaukee, not only is Wisconsin a cold state climate-wise, it's got a lot going on. These people need jobs. These people need quality jobs so that they can pay their bills and take care of their families. And it's a shame before God that we're having this conversation less than 30 days until the election.
I agree with Grandma, but I'd rather be having it before than to be having it, on November 10th, having not won the election. And it's not a lot of time to, try to shift gears. But I would say that it gives us an opportunity to get into Wisconsin.
We do have an opportunity, but my question would be, why weren't they talking to these voters 6 months ago? Because I am pretty sure the folks didn't wake up this morning and all of a sudden say that they weren't happy with the ticket or they weren't happy with the party. And I think what people have to understand is that this is not an indictment against Vice President Harris. This is not a personal thing against Vice President Harris. This is about the apparatus known as the DNC, the Democratic Party, not paying attention and not giving a voice to its most loyal base when they want to talk. And so now we're less than 30 days to the election, and the only card that Black people have is to not vote. That's the only
let's
card
be clear.
they have.
You're right. This is not about our VP. She became the candidate on July 21st.
Right.
And she has covered more ground than anyone can humanly possibly cover in that time period. She inherited a campaign apparatus. She had to merge that apparatus with her own team. She had to raise that. The money had dried up. So this $1 billion, not only is it remarkable, but it's remarkable when you think about what was happening in June and July after that debate, when big donors said they weren't giving money. So the money had completely dried up. And I was talking to fundraisers were saying they were so nervous because they couldn't finance the folks that we're talking about that needed to be in these states. And this is a structural, that's the word. This is a structural problem that the Democrats have. And it's not new to this election cycle. It's not new to Kamala Harris. It wasn't new to Joe Biden. We in our party can do better. And we hear this, and I hear it on this show every of the day, I think, when I
Every
talk
day.
to my voting every day. Yeah, folks saying, where's the money? Not enough money going into Black communities for media, the Black media, not getting its share of this $1 billion. Not getting the kind of volunteers that they need, not getting the support, and not just in this month or these 60 days or 90 days, but really looking at what are we doing year round, because elections are won in the off year, not in the election year. The trust is built during that period when nobody's thinking about who's running, because that's when people, see who you are, what you stand for, what you're fighting for. So, to the team, not to Kamala Harris, again, that this woman could not do any more, run any faster, work any harder, but to the Democratic apparatus, get into that state, get into that city, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, flood that city with as many people as you can. Because one thing we know about Black folks, we're loyal. And a lot of times we just want to be heard. We just want to be seen. We want our issues to be acknowledged. And I think like the Democratic Party was able to turn some of those uncommitted voters in with Michigan and Minnesota around on the Gaza issue, they'll be able to do the same in Wisconsin. So we got time, party. Listen to us. We're telling you what to do.
Yeah,
we're giving you the formula.
And I just want to add, because I know we've got to go to break, but at the point of this is about relationship. What is the type of relationship, not that Black people just want, but the type of relationship the Democratic Party is able to build over time? So to your point, Areva, right? Trust is built when relationship is built, when connection is built, right? That you're not coming to me 4 weeks before the election, 6 weeks before the election, 2 months before the election, whatever. We say this every cycle and it's happening again. And so, again, it's a little different because we have a Black woman at the top of the ticket, right? It's not her problem. She is the one on the receiving end of the structural issue. And so now the question that we have to have in this 4 weeks and even after is, how do we continue to demand trust and demand a relationship within a party that we have been loyal to?
Absolutely. And that's what, when Kamala Harris is president and she gets to pick the chair of the DNC, and she gets to put an apparatus in place. And hopefully the mandate is, get into these states where I was weak. Black men. We know we have an issue with Black men. We can't fix it all in 25 or 26 days, but after we win, we can go and invest in these communities and this demographic of Black men. And she's already started doing that. But obviously, again, since July 21st, she has so much ground to cover. And she's making up ground on the economy. There are polls out now that say people now feel like she has either caught up with or is very close to Trump in terms of who is the best capable of dealing with the economy. So she's had so much ground to make up, and we just give her a lot of credit for doing that. And hey, we're going to give the Dems a lot of credit too, because we raised that money and she has closed the gap in terms of these polls. So as much as we're saying we can do better, we also acknowledge how much great work has been done by our party and by the party leadership. We just want, we don't want close elections. We want enthusiastic 2008 Obama type elections.
Right. We don't
get there. When we come forward, we got to talk about Larry Hogan. Says he wants to be the next Joe Manchin. I'm not so sure that's a good thing, but right now, because he's trailing that Black woman, Angela Alsobrooks, I think he would say and do whatever to win that seat. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Did you know every 3 seconds someone is a victim of identity theft? LifeLock wants to give you helpful tips to protect your identity this Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Adding multi-factor authentication, like a text with a security code, is one way to boost your security. But for comprehensive protection, trust LifeLock. LifeLock alerts you to suspicious uses of your personal info and steps in to resolve issues that arise, guaranteed or your money back. Protect yourself with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. Terms apply.
Mommy, want to play a game with me and Dad?
Mommy's not feeling good.
You need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with DayQuil VapoCool. It's DayQuil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
Come on, honey, let's let mommy rest.
You guys are amazing. And so is Dayquil VapoCool.
Dayquil VapoCool, the vaporizing daytime coughing, aching, fever, power through your day medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Black Women for Wellness and Stand LA are standing up against harmful oil drilling in South Los Angeles. Our Bad Neighbors campaign exposes the serious health risks of drilling in our neighborhoods. You've seen the billboards, posters, and coffee sleeves around South LA. Now join the movement to protect our health, our families, and our future.
Visit bwwla.org/no-drilling to learn more and get involved. That's bwwla.org/no-drilling.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. SMP volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an SMP open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit ca-smp-volunteer.org.
That morning chill means truck season.
5 more minutes.
No snoozing. Do it all in a Chevy Colorado or Silverado, including the class-leading range of the Silverado EV.
Talking to me?
Work, play, hauling, off-roading, a Chevy truck can take it all.
Okay, I'm up.
It's Chevy Truck Season. Get 0% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
0% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $27.78 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 9.3%. Plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available at least in some of the offers. Take new retail delivery by 10/31/24.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion.
We aim to be a thermostat,
transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
As we go a little something like this.
Hey, it is me, D.L. Huger, and I am thrilled to be heard weekdays in my hometown on KBLA Talk 1580. So check out the D.L. Huger Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. We got a whole lot to talk about, let me tell you.
That's for the real.
We are back, and Rashad and Jamar, both of you are absolutely right. I'm just going deeper in this article in the Washington Post about Milwaukee, and Milwaukee is unfortunately has been rated one of the worst cities for, well, the state of Wisconsin has been voted the worst state for Black Americans. The Sentencing Project, a nonprofit group that advocates for changes to the criminal justice system, found that Wisconsin imprisons its Black residents at the highest rate in the country, and that Black residents represent just 6% of the state's residents, but 42% of the prison population. More than a dozen Black residents across the city's north side said they weren't convinced electing Harris or Trump would lead to the kind of transformation their neighborhoods need. Many were disappointed that the Obama administration failed to deliver an economic revival of their community. Black people in this city turned out in huge numbers to vote for the hope and change that Obama was promising, referring to Obama's celebrated campaign slogan. But people didn't see change in their neighborhood, and they didn't see changes to their paychecks. And a lot of folks are feeling disillusioned. So that's what our VP is inheriting, or has inherited, is a community that feels disenfranchised, that feels like they did their part, and they bought into the hope and change message, and they didn't see much hope or change. Again, we're not going to fix this in 26 days, but I hope the Democratic Party is taking note of this community. And there's so many communities like this across this country, and we have an opportunity to do something about it. We know not voting is not the solution. I know as upset as people are, and I know sometimes it feels like your vote doesn't matter. And that community is hurting, and they deserve to be seen and heard, and they deserve help. But trust me, if Donald Trump is the president, that community that's already hurting will suffer even more. That's a lot. We got to get Chris Walton and some of our Wisconsin folks on to talk about that, because that's really deep. But Larry Hogan, Rashad, says, vote for me. And I can bring this divided Senate together. I won't be that Republican that just follows Donald Trump's orders. I'll be able to, reach across the aisle and have that kind of independent voice that West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who happens to be retiring, had. Is it a good thing for Larry Hogan to try to tie himself to Joe Manchin?
I'm going to say yes. And the reason I'm saying...
You said that like you're on a game show.
The reason I'm saying
I'll take
yes...
A, Alex.
The reason I'm saying yes is because Blue Dogs are a real group of people. They are a real group of voters. And while the Democratic Party is a big tent, access and leadership are not equitable under the tent. And Larry Hogan has a history, unlike a lot of Republicans who are now trying to act like they weren't supportive of Donald Trump. Larry Hogan is one of the few Republicans who has a history of not standing with Trump and working across the aisle. He was a twice elected governor of this very blue state of Maryland. He won by pretty decent margin that there were no recalls and recounts, right? And he worked with the state Senate and the state House. He worked with the county executive and the city councils and the county councils and the mayors, and they did good stuff. There were some things that definitely could have been better, but he was not a total party line governor. So he has a record that he can stand on when he says, I will be a moderate, I will be an independent. He has a record that he could stand on. I think if I were advising Larry Hogan, I would not have aligned myself with the likes of Joe Manchin, because Joe Manchin is a person who cannot be trusted. If I were him, I would have said, I will be independent, and I would have painted myself to be more like the Republican version of Bernie Sanders, which is more palatable to Democrats who would be willing to cross over than a Joe Manchin.
Okay, I hear you. And Larry Hogan has done something that is rarely done, two-time governor, very popular governor in the blue state, Maryland. But Jamar, Larry Hogan, I read an op-ed piece in the Washington Post that said if Larry Hogan was really serious about being independent of the Republican Party, he could have run as an independent. But by running as a Republican, who can trust him? We can't trust that he is not going to be that vote that Republicans will need if they have a slim majority in the Senate. We can't trust that he won't caucus with Republicans and kill bills that are brought by, say, a democratically controlled House, or kill nominees for the federal bench or even a U.S. Supreme Court justice. I don't know if I trust this I'm going to be independent rhetoric from him.
I mean, if I were Angela Alsobrooks, that's the question I would be asking. I would stand on that debate stage and say, you can say you're independent, but when you get there and you have to govern, who are you going to caucus with? How are you going to vote on particular issues, right? I know there's been some discrepancies around his stances on abortion access and reproductive health care and those sorts of things. And I think what you're saying is the exact question, because, Joe Manchin is independent, in theory, but he is also an agitator. And is he always successful in his agitation? And that is why he has made people upset, because he is not always successful in that. And so I think that that's also the thing. And then I agree with a lot of what Rashad said. The only caveat I will say in this election is it is harder to break as a Republican in a blue state in a presidential year. So if people are excited about Kamala Harris in Maryland, if people are excited about Angela Alsobrooks in Maryland, it's going to be very hard to break that, even with his record being elected twice in a blue state, having to work with a Democratic legislature to pass budgets and other things, right, of that nature. Will that break through in the rhetoric in the state that will likely go for Kamala Harris? We don't know. And that would also be a bigger sign for Angela Alsobrooks, right, about where the base is if people are that concerned about crossing over. I'm not seeing in the polling that their margin is close enough, that there's enough of that crossover, right? And so I think that at the end of the day, and then the other caveat I think is important is running for governor in a blue state as a Republican and running for U.S. Senate in a blue state are two different things, because when you get to that federal and that national narrative, that he's still going to have to answer those questions, right? Because if somehow Donald Trump is the president and you're there, it's easy to say you'll buck him, but it's different when you have to govern. And the other question.
Hold on a second. Let me just say this too.
Oh,
Republicans that send him to that U.S. Senate are not going to want to see him bucking Donald Trump.
President.
So he's going to have so much pressure from his Republican base to vote with Republicans.
Yeah, and then
I would say this: Republicans in Maryland, they're not Republicans in South Carolina. But you are correct. But I just want to throw that out there. They're not like the Republicans in the Deep South. But you are correct. There is even if he's not getting pressure from the Maryland Republicans, he'd be getting it from Republicans nationally.
And we know how. And honestly, we know how. And honestly, we know how Donald Trump is. We know how Donald Trump is. Donald Trump will use him now, get the seat, get the numbers in the Senate, and then when he's sick of him, go find somebody to primary him, and then end up losing the seat anyway. And that's because that's how Donald Trump operates. And so he operates in that kind of chaos and lack of strategy in that kind of way. And so I think that those are some really important points.
Yeah, the minute that Larry Hogan did not caucus with the Republicans, it would be a done deal. He'd be out of there.
Exactly. Donald Trump is too fickle to understand independent in numbers.
Thank you. And stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
It's okay. But it's good to see everyone.